It's often said that extinction is forever. And when you lose the key parts of your environment, the effect of that extinction can be so massive. And it can be as enormous as woolly mammoths or as tiny as an invertebrate. And with the loss of the phasmid from Lord Howe, we never really knew what we'd lost. And this is the worst thing, is that our future becomes depauperate and we don't even know what's gone. And it's only when we get these tantalising views back to the past, and whether it be a grainy bit of footage of a thylacine, which is heart-wrenching to view, or whether it be finding moa eggs in New Zealand of these 16-foot birds that used to tromp round the island eating the vegetation. And we were that close to stopping the extinction. If only it had lasted a little bit longer and we might have had the sense to do something about it. But those things can never come back. And extinction means that we mourn it in the present if we knew about its past. And in the future, we just wonder. We talk about using the DNA of extinct animals and trying to work it back into a similar species and get something that approximates what we have lost. But really, that's science just tinkering around on the edge. We've got to stop extinction now because despite the efforts of science, there is no going back and the future is silent. Lord Howe Island Board banned the climbing on Ball's Pyramid from the 1980s, and there were rock climbers who were desperate to climb this thing. And I was working for what was National Parks and Wildlife in New South Wales, and as part of that, we would often get stuff across our desk about climbers who wanted to climb Ball's Pyramid to look for the phasmid. And we'd look at the list of the people who were on the trip, realise there was not even an entomologist, and we got a bit sick of having to knock these things back. So David Pradell said, the only way we've got to solve this problem is to go and prove that it's not there. So how about we do that? And I thought, this sounds like a bit of a boy's own adventure, but I'm up for it. Let's go. The thing about Ball's Pyramid is it's like something. It's a prehistoric place. Its sheer vertical faces seem to actually curve out above you when you get very close to it in a calm sea. When you actually get there and get on the rock and get your gear there, because you've got to carry all your water, all your food, bedding, cooking gear, the whole lot, even though you might be staying overnight as we did, you have to expect to be there for 3 or 4 days. If the seas turn nasty, there is nothing they can do about getting you off. So you just have to manage it. And I think we took, 18 containers of water with us, because we thought at least if we've got water, we'll survive regardless of how many days we have to be there. So it's quite an extraordinary place to be. You're isolated, you're on this stunning rock platform that is spattered with bird guano and keeps being spattered as you're there, and you have this tower behind you that goes up to the sky and in fact can get its own cloud. It is a startling reminder of how beautiful our planet is and how lucky we are to have parts of it in such beautiful condition. When we were climbing the pyramid on the first day, we passed I think 7 or 8 melaleucas in one bench and another 5 or 6 further up on the way up, but that was it for larger vegetation. And we knew that the phasmid needed daytime refuge of hollows, and so we saw no hollows, so we weren't expecting to find anything. And so when we climbed back down at the end of that first day, we passed by a set of melaleuca trees, and in fact one everybody has to step over to walk along this ledge if you want to ascend Ball's Pyramid. I got to it first and I saw these large bits of sort of lumps of dirt, but they weren't dirt, they were funny sort of granular things, and I grabbed a few and I showed them to Margaret, being the entomologist expert, and I said, what are these? Is this frass? She said, yeah, looks like it is. I mean, it could be cricket, but it's certainly large frass. And we thought, oh, wow, that's fantastic. But by that stage, we'd run out of water about an hour and a half before, and it was about 40 degrees. We were baking. So we thought, well, let's get down, have a few cups of tea, and then think about what we're going to do tomorrow. as the evening drew in, David pulled me aside and he said, "Nicholas, it's a nocturnal invertebrate, and the only way we're going to be certain that that frass doesn't belong to a phasmid is to actually climb at night." And he said, "I'm not going to ask you to do that because I can't do that myself." And I said, "Oh, mate, I'll do it. No worries." And I said, "I'll check in with Dean. I'm sure he'll be up for it." And Dean, of course, said, "Yeah, I'm up for it. Let's go." And so Dean and I got ourselves together, just a head torch each, and I slipped a little Instamatic camera in my pocket, and we ascended after dark. We climbed along the side and started heading up. And we finally got to the bush. I was in the lead, and my light picked up on something glossy, and we both stood there and looked at it, and we just realised we knew what we were looking at. And it was just the most startling experience you could ever imagine. And in fact, I get chills about it every time I think about it, because it's not often that you get to see something that has disappeared forever, that fills the jars of the Australian Museum when they collected them in the 1880s. And Dean and I were just like 6-year-olds in a lolly shop. We were so excited. There were lots of expletives, certainly from me. Dean's a little bit more conservative with that, but I was overawed with what I was seeing. And then we decided, right, let's go and have a look how many there are. And we found one very low on the same bush. We looked inside the bush and we found a nymph, which is a young. We checked the 6 other bushes, found nothing. So we thought, wow, is this it? We took the photos. I only had 3 shots left on my camera, funny enough, and then we climbed back down. We got back to camp about 10:30 at night, and David and Margaret were asleep. And I went up to David first and just whispered in his ear, "We found the phasmid." And David's like, "What? Yeah." And then I did the same to Margaret before David got to his senses, and they both jumped out of their swags, and we just boiled the billy several times for the next 2 or 3 hours and just talked non-stop about how exciting this was and what it meant and what the future could hold. And we can't wait to tell someone. We realised in subsequent days that this was a single shrub species, and that was just startling. I mean, we're probably looking at the rarest invertebrate in the world. And we worked out that what we needed to do was to try and develop a captive breeding program for this species, because limited to a single shrub, you are such at risk of stochastic extinction through landslip or something else, and we thought it was fairly straightforward to get approvals to take these animals off Ball's Pyramid, because at the time the phasmid was extinct, and so it wasn't actually on the threatened species list. But the bureaucrats who were running the process wanted more answers, and so things dragged on, not for 1 year, not for 2 years, but for actually 3 years. We waited to get approval, and the paperwork probably reached about 1 metre deep to get it through that process. And then we waited because we didn't know what to expect. Patrick stayed up the whole night watching this animal moving around at night because we knew nothing about them. So he was desperate to pick up what was going on. And in fact, when he took them back to Melbourne, he totally switched his working life and he stayed up every night for the next month. And for about 2 weeks, things went okay. They were getting eggs. And then tragedy really struck the program. And when she started walking around the enclosure again, he was just so relieved and excited. And he was just desperate to talk to someone. And it was like 4 a.m. And so he went outside and all he could find were a few possums scrummaging around in the trees. And he talked to the possums, and in fact he invoked a bit of Harry Potter, which his son was reading at the time, and he said to them, "I am truly a great wizard," because he'd actually saved this species really from certain death. And that was just a most extraordinary event, all down to the dedication and passion of this man. So we have a lot to thank Patrick for. It took Patrick and his team about 18 months to really crack the breeding of phasmids in captivity. And the first eggs actually hatched on Father's Day in September of 2003, which was also National Endangered Species Day, which was the day the last thylacine died in captivity. So it was a rather nice symmetry for us, celebrating the continuation of this species on the day that we lost another important species from the biota in Australia. The captive breeding continues, and there are many tens of thousands of eggs now waiting to hatch. There are over 1,000 individuals in captivity. The population in the wild literally hasn't been visited for about six years now, but the population certainly at Melbourne Zoo is secure. But having them in captivity, while that buys us time, that's all it really buys us. If you cannot repair the environment that has caused that animal to become endangered, you're not even at first base. Because unless those animals can breed in the wild, in a natural environment, on their own without assistance, we're really stuck. And so for Lord Howe, that obviously means that we have to have an eradication of rodents. If we get rid of the rodents, not only can we bring the phasmid back, but we can turn back time. We can almost go back to the moment that Europeans first arrived, and one of the people went back to the ship after a day on shore and he said, "This is Eden. We have found Eden here." There are a number of species that have been lost on Lord Howe, but there are subspecies elsewhere that can be replaced and brought back to Lord Howe. There's a warbler, a gerygony, there's a fantail, there are pigeons, there are parrots. There's a whole bunch of species that we could reintroduce subspecies from elsewhere and actually create or recreate those forests where there is song all day in the forest. It isn't a quiet place, and we really can bring Eden back. And I think there is support for this because in the advent of ecotourism, people want to see these places. They want to go back to a pristine environment. They're sick and tired of the cities and the noise and the grime and the loss of species. And with Lord Howe, we have this opportunity to do something that you can't do on mainland islands like Australia. You can't eradicate rats or even rabbits or foxes or cats on a big island like Australia. But on Lord Howe, we have this opportunity. It's really in the palm of our hands to recreate Eden here. Sorry, I'm getting a bit emotional here.